I'll send a Zoom link invite right before the beginning. Again, you're welcome to use your notes, right? Any GitHub repositories that belong to you or mine, but please do not use any AI assistant or anything like that. And you're expected to work on this on your own, right? But other than that, right, we'll meet for the whole lecture time for 100 minutes. And you know, if you have any questions, there'll be myself and a couple of other TAs. Just you know, type your question on the chat, right? And one of us will try to answer. You know, if it's something that there's something wrong with the exam, but we'll let everybody else know and you know what the answer is or whatnot. Other than that, yeah. So let's good luck. Yes. Yeah, no, it's only between during the time that we meet. I'll send a Zoom link. So it'll be the whole 100 minutes of the lecture. All right, so I did share with you a sample exam from prior semesters, right? So you can take a look at that. So I'm gonna solve it together and I'll document in a Google Doc the answers. So I'll write down what the answers are for each one of the questions. All right, we're gonna solve it together. The fourth assignment covers first using useState, right? Where you get a mutator, you get an initialized value, but it also covers Redux, right? So no Redux in the exam. So the first three assignments plus the useState, no Redux at all. Yeah, no use dispatch, no store, no provider, none of that. But definitely useState, right? Being able to initialize variables, state variables, being able to mutate them, things like that. The exam is very similar to a quiz, right? Multiple choice, fill in the blank, and we'll see that today. All right, so yeah, so here's the first question. It says, gives us a two code snippets, right? The first one is it looks like it's a component that is taking some parameters here, right? Looks like it's being used here at the root application, right there, right? So this is referencing this function here, this component, and it's passing it. Looks like it's passing it one attribute and the one value to that attribute, right? And so we're grabbing that attribute over here, right? We're destructing that attribute. And then it says, okay, well, looks like this is a function call of some sort. It looks like that function call returns something that we are destructing using the square bracket, the array destructor. We've seen this before, right? There's a syntax that is very similar that we've seen. So this kind of gives me a clue that this might be a use state, maybe. And so this might be some variable that is being initialized, maybe a mutator, but I don't know yet, right? We'll see. Looks like there's a couple that we're rendering some value QWE. It looks like it's nowhere declared anywhere here. So somewhere we would need to declare QWE for this to work. Looks like there's a WER also here that looks like it's nowhere declared anywhere. So somewhere we would need to declare that somewhere over here. This looks like these are two references to looks like a couple of variables, right, that are being added. So this must be some kind of integer. And we are invoking some function. It looks like there's no other function declared here, right? Maybe it's one of these variables. We don't know yet. But it says, you know, fill in the blanks below so that the header, this header, right, H2, displays a value of 10. So this should render as 10. If you click this button, right, and then you click ZXC, right? So it looks like we're going to click these two buttons, first one and then the other, in that order. Right? And after you do that, this renders 10. Very good? There still follows? Okay. All right, so let's try to walk this backwards. So let's see. So this is QWE, needs to render 10 at some point, okay? Let's see, it could be that it's being passed over here. You know, 3 might be QWE, maybe, I don't know. We don't know that yet, but let's see. Let's see, so WER is a reference to a variable. And so where could that be referenced? Where could that be declared? The only place that it could possibly be declared is here. No, it cannot be declared here or here, right? That would be, you know, it's a self-referencing, right? That would be a loop. So the only place that it could possibly reference is here, declared here. So 3 must be WER, whatever that is. If this is WER, that must be the name of whatever we're passing over here, right? So this must be the attribute, also WER. So let's start with there. So 1 is WER and 3 must be WER. So let's fill that up. So let's put here. So 1 must be what? WER for this to work. This one I don't know yet. 3 must also be WER. And we don't know how much we're passing. We don't know the value of EWER. If this is WER, let's see. So there's a function call here. There's a function call. Where could that function be? Well, could it be passed as an argument? That could have been, right? We could have been passing a function, but it doesn't look like it's a function here. This can't be a function, right? We cannot be passing a function. So the only other place that can be declared is maybe this guy passes us somewhere here. This is either 4 or 5 is ASD, right? So either 4 or 5 is ASD. Let's see. So we want QWE to change values, right? First, it must have some initial value, and then we click on it. It changes some value, but then we click it again, and then it eventually has the value of 10. The only way that we know how to create some initial value and then modify it over time is to use the use state, right? That's the only strategy that we have where this would be the initial value of that variable, and then this would be the mutator, correct? That's the only way that we know how to do that. So this must be a function, right? And the only function call that we have here is ASD. So 5 must be ASD, right? And the mutated value, the state variable must be QWE, right? So this must be QWE, and this must be the function ASD, right? So let's capture that. So 4 must be QWE. Yes. Yes, I'll share this document with you. And 5 must be ASD. All right. Let's see. Let's keep going. So 8 must be the use state. Right? We don't have space for that yet. So 6, 7. So this is use state. What else? Let's see. So okay, so it looks like this is some initial value, right? This is which I'm using to initialize this, right? So this is 2. Some initial value is being used here to initialize my QWE. But I don't know the initial value, not yet. But I guess we can work it backwards, right? Let's see. What is ASD doing? ASD looks like it's whatever initial value we had, we're going to add 20 to it, and then we're going to subtract 30 from it, right? So in total, we are subtracting 10, right? And the resulting value is 10. So that must be that the initial value must be 20, right? So 20 plus 20, that's 40, minus 30 is 10. So the initial value must be 20. So the initial value of WER must be 20. That means that 2 must be 20. So 2 must be 20. And what are we doing here? So we are kind of like initializing, updating the value of the cumulative value of the state variable, right? So we're just the state variable plus 20, or the state variable minus 30. So 6 and 7 are also QWE. So 6 and 7 are also QWE. Okay. You follow that? All right. Let's go to question 2. All right. So question 2. Now, the reason I'm not using real names for these functions, if I put real names, you would immediately see what's going on, right? You would, or I could use wrong names and to try to mislead you. But I'm not. So I'd rather not either give away what it does, right, or mislead you. So I'm just using some random function names, and you have to just step through it to see what's going on. Yes, to understand what it's doing. Okay, let's see. So here we have an array QWE, right? That it's being initialized with these values: 5, some placeholder 3, placeholder 1. Okay. Then let's see. Then a function is a variable WER is being assigned some expression here that it looks like it's this must be a function. Number two must be a function, right? Because we have a parameter list here, and it's being applied on some variable or some object. We're applying that function. Now, this variable, it can only be QWE, right? It cannot be anything else, right? Well, I guess it could be itself, but you cannot use something that has not been declared yet. So it must be QWE, right? Or I guess it could be something that 5 is. I don't know what could that be. It's an array of values, so probably these are just integers, right? It cannot be anything else because it can't reference anything that hasn't been declared yet. Yes, right. So this must be some primitive data type, either an integer or a string or some Boolean. I don't know yet, right? But it cannot be a variable because there are no other variables declared prior to it. Correct, right? So this can only be QWE. So it can only be QWE. So this is QWE. And then on that array, we are applying some function on that array, of which we know a few, right? We know filter, we have map, we have find, right? Find index. There's a whole bunch of them, right? We don't know yet which one, but it's one of them. And then that function then iterates over each one of the items, passing each value, right, to ASD, and what it's doing is that notice that it's multiplying these values together, okay, and whatever the result of that is being assigned to WER, right? Now it says that WER after going through this process results that the values are 25, 16, 9, 4, and 1. Okay. So it looks like, notice that this array, right, the resulting array, looks like it's the result of having somehow computed, right, this new array based on the original array, correct? Right. And so let's see, if you notice, they have the same number of elements, right? This one has 5 elements, and this one also has 5 elements, right? And the only one that we know functions that do that when we iterate over an array, right, are the reduce and map. So we haven't looked at reduce, we haven't looked at map quite a bit, yes. And what it does is that as it iterates over each item, right, it invokes the function, and whatever that function returns, right, it accumulates all those values into the resulting array, correct? Right. So now, so 2 probably is map. I'll go with map. We'll see if that works. Right. So we'll go with map. And then what it's doing, it looks like it's if you look at the values that we are given, notice that we have 5 becomes 25, right? 3 becomes 9, right? And 1 becomes 1. Okay. Now there's an easy relationship to this, is that we're just computing the squares of their initial values, right? So that means that this function somehow, right, is calculating the square, and so to do that, then 3 and 4 must be just ASD, right? It's just multiplying ASD times ASD, correct? Right. So 3 and 4 must be ASD. Now, if that's true, that it's calculating the squares, then 25 must be the square of 5, 16 must be the square of 4, right? So 5 must be 4. And same thing, the square of 3 is 9, that's good. And then the square, right, of 2 must be 4, so 6 must be 2. And I believe that was it. Yeah, that's it. All right, make sense? Any questions? All right. Okay, let's take a look at question 3. All right. So question 3 gives us a couple of arrays, right? And it says, EWQ is this array of 2 values. YUI is an array that in the middle, it declares 2 items, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6 at each end, but it's spreading, right, EWQ in the middle of the array, right? So that's equivalent to saying, that YUI becomes 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, and then 4, 5, 6, correct? Right, so we know what YUI would be. And then we have ZXC that declares 3 items. We don't know what they are. It says fill in the blanks so that the resulting array has the following values. So this would be 2, 3, 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 2. Oh, okay. Well, all right. So notice that we do have let's see. Okay, 1, 2, 3, right? So we have 2, 3, 4. Then 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, and 4, 5, 6. Okay, so looks like the second item is just this spread over here. So 2 looks like is the spreader of YUI. Let's see if that's true, right? If 1 would be, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4, looks like 2 would be that, right? Followed by that, followed by this, correct? And then followed by 4, 5, 6, right? Does that make sense? So this might be the spreader of YUI, right? So 2 looks like it's a spread of YUI. Now, for this to be complete, I would need to have the first item here to be 2, 3, 4, and then the last one also to be 2, 3, 4, right? So it would be 2, 3, 4, spreader of YUI, and then 2, 3, 4 again, right? Now, I remember folks answered also for 1. They answered EWQ sub 0, right? And I guess that would be valid as well, right? That is so. It is an ambiguous answer, right? Although I do ask you to please only use these characters. So don't not to use any special characters such as square brackets or curly brackets or parentheses, right? So ideally your answer should be just a character, right? Either a single letter, right, or just a couple letters, and then that's it, right? At most, maybe a period, right? But even that, I'm going to try and to even avoid you having to even use any punctuation whatsoever, right? So that we don't get into any ambiguity. Right? I know in one of the exams and one of the questions, some folks were adding the dot join as part of the answer, right? And obviously, it was marked wrong, even though it was correct. Right? So we had to go back in and manually grade the students, even though it was syntactically correct, right? Obviously, these are automatically graded, right? Which is fine, right? So if you lose points and your answer is correct, even if it's ambiguous, please let us know, right? Just take a snapshot of the question and report it. Usually, what we do is that we'll put out a post, sometime next week, right, for students to respond, right, if they feel that they lost points unfairly, right, that their answer is also correct. Yes. So please respond. Take a screenshot, and then we'll go back and if the question was flawed, right, we'll fix it for everybody. Give back the points for everyone. Okay. So but ideally you should be able to just answer with a single character or numbers. Yes. I'm sorry. For 2 here. Here? No. What I was saying that for this one, they use EWQ sub 0 because they say, oh well, the 2, 3, 4 is just the first item in EWQ, so it's technically correct, right? But I was looking for something as trivial as this just being 2, 3, 4, right? And so that was what the automatic grading was looking for, right? But again, if you're using something that is technically correct, but the automatic grader didn't catch it, please let us know and we'll give you the full credit. Okay. I remember that in this question, someone also for this one, they put I think what they did is they put 7, they put 40, which is correct, right? 40 minus 30, right, sets it to 10, right? So that was correct. I had to give them full credit, right? So this one was ambiguous as well, right? So again, if you do find things that are ambiguous like that, please let us know. Ideally, I have minimized every chance of you ambiguously answering the question. Yes.
Would it be ambiguous if you comes to
Right, no, but so yeah, the second answer, right? Clicking the AS the second CXZ just completely ignores whatever the initial value was, right? It just directly goes to 10, regardless of what prior value it was, right? So if you hard code 40 minus 30, it'll set it to 10, regardless of whatever you did before, right? Yeah, no, the intention is that, right, we're using statefulness, right, and that it's because you click it several times, right, it becomes whatever value it was, right? It's based on what its prior value was. And the whole point of state is being able to use your historical value, right? But it's a valid value, right? It's a valid answer. Right? I can't I cannot not give you the points, right? Because it's correct. I did. I had to give because it is correct. Yes, it would actually do what it says. Where was I? Let's see. Okay, so let's look at question 3. All right, so question 3, for 1, it's 2, 3, 4. The second one would be the spreader of YUI, and then 3 was also 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay, question 4. So question 4, does a little bit of what we just did with the array destructors, right, and spreader. Here we're looking at object spreaders, right? So it's asking you to see if you understand the syntax, how it works, right? If you are overriding values, right? If you're spreading after the fact, right? So let's see. So we're declaring here a couple of variables, right? The EWQ is an object that has property ASD with the value 765. And then the XCV is spreading EWQ and then declaring a brand new variable, a brand new property BNM, and what we don't know what the value is. And then you have a constant Y that has is declaring BNM at 890, then 1, and then 2 looks like it's a property value, property colon value, right? So the 1 is not intended to be a property value. It's just a value, either a variable or some primitive data type. We don't know, right? But if the intention is for you to, declare a new variable, I would already gave you the placeholders, right? So, for instance, you would not be expected to, for instance, declare a variable like placeholder 1. You would not be declaring A:3 or something, right? You would just either be a reference to a variable or some primitive data type. Yes. So most questions, most answers should be as simple as either some primitive data type that you fill out, right, or some reference to some variable or some function. Okay, ideally. All right, so fill in the blanks. So at the end, right, YUI is equal to ASD 765, BNM 345, and QWE 890. Okay. All right, so let's see if we can do that. Let's see. Let's see. We already have the ASD 765, right? It's declared here in the EWQ. All right. Yes. So notice that we are spreading that over XCV. So we already have ASD, and then we have BNM. Right? So this first part it looks like it's from XCV. Let's see. Now we don't have QWE, right? We want this to be this value over here. So what about if we, let's say, we could, in 1, we could either set a value, well, not a value, it would need to be a property, and then the name of a property and a value. But again, we should not do that. We either are going to spread EWQ or spread XCV. So let's say we spread, let's say, EWQ. If we do that, we end up with what? Let's see, we have BNM 890. Okay, that's not what we want. We want BNM to be 345, so that will not work. So somewhere we need to override BNM to be 345, right? How do we do that? BNM 345. Well, we could do is if we spread XCV over here and we initialize BNM to be 345, it would come after this declaration. That would mean that it would override this to be 345, and we would get the ASD that we spread over here. So we would get the ASD 765. We would override the 345 over here with the 890. So that would go away, right? And we're still left over with what? So we have this from here that would spread over here. Then we have the 345 over here. So we would still be left with missing a QWE. So we could do QWE then 890, right? So that would work, right? Right. So if we do something like 1 would be the spreader of XCV. So 1 would be spread XCV. So that would bring in the ASD, right? And it would bring the BNM, but only if 3 is 345 to override this 890, no? So that would be 345. And what would 2 be? So 2 would be so that we can declare, I guess, QWE, right? So 4 would be the 890. Yes.
To make sure, like, whenever you have the same property value, if you do the same property value, it's either one like there.
Yeah. So if you have if you're spreading an object that already has a property, so that the last one wins, right? It overrides whatever prior ones were there, right? And we use that feature a lot when we're editing an input field, right? We spread over an object and then we override it, right, for that particular property. It's a very common feature. Yes. Right. Right. Exactly. The last one. No, only the last one wins. Yeah, because it's the names of the properties have to be unique, right? You cannot have multiple instances of the same property name, right? It's the equivalent in an array. It's the equivalent of an index, right? The index are unique. You know, the index 0, 1, 2, 3. In an object, the properties are the indexes, right? And they need to be unique. Yeah, right. You could not declare an object with the same property multiple times, but a spreader would cause a collision, right, of two properties, right? If two objects have the same property. So two objects having the same property, that's fine, right? So the problem is, well, what if you spread one on top of the other and they have the same property? Then there's a collision. So you have to resolve the collision, right? And basically the rule is that the last one wins. Yes.
So if I have like being 890 and then do BNM 345,
Right.
if I like explicitly read it then it won't compile.
Yeah, that won't compile. Right. Yeah. Yeah, it would be a syntax error. Yep. All right, so let's look at question 5. So Q5. Okay, so let's see. We have here a function xtr. So it looks like it's a component that we are passing some attribute. So right away, this attribute must be this attribute here, 1, right? That's the only way. So 1 must be, right, FDS, so FDS. And with the value of GFD. Okay, so the value of this thing is GFD. All right, whatever that is. Let's continue. Let's see. Right. So again, every time you see something like that, we have a destructor on the left-hand side, and you have a function. That's almost a giveaway that this is a use state question, right? But not necessarily, right? But immediately this should kick in, right? That kind of pattern, right? When you have a destructor like that. And same thing, right? If this were a curly brackets where you are doing an object destructure, right? Then maybe this is either using use params, right, or use location, right? Or when we see Redux, it would be maybe a use selector, maybe, I don't know. Okay, so one of those. So that would be a kind of a giveaway, right? That of the kind of examples that we've seen so far, where we use that kind of syntax. Yes, right. But again, within the context of what we have, the material that we are learning about, right? This is a kind of giveaway that the syntax, this must be a state variable. This would be a state variable, and presumably this would be a mutator, okay? And this would be some kind of use state that is initializing the state variable to some value too. Now, the only other thing that it could be referencing to, right? The only possible thing that it could be referencing is something that's being declared, right, in a prior piece of code, right? So it must be whatever one is, right? So one, if one is FDS, then two must be FDS. And use state, I'm gonna go 3 is use state, and if it's wrong, I'll need to come back and change that. But it looks like it is. Let's see. Okay, so what is this? Let's see. On change. So this must be an input field, right? And you have an on change. That means that presumably we are either typing, right, at a particular text area. It looks like it must be a text area because it doesn't have a type, right? If you had a type, it could be a checkbox or radio button, but it doesn't say, right? So the default is just that this is a text area. I mean, an input field. Yes, that's the default if I don't have any type. So this must be some kind of like an event, right? That I'm typing, and as I type, I am modifying something. I'm calling some function to modify. Now, the only other function here that is declared here must be what? This is the only other function in the code, right? Like it can only be RTY. So 7, 7 must be RTY. Let's keep going. QWE. So QWE must be either some variable declared earlier, or maybe the argument of this function. I don't know, right? Let's see. So this one doesn't declare any variables. This one is not a declaration of a variable. That one's a declaration of a variable, but already know that that's FDS. So this must be, this over here, right? The parameter in the callback. It probably is the event, right? It must be the event when you invoke the, as you type, QWE must be the event object that's being passed to us. And then usually, right, what we do is, as we update the input field as we're typing, usually the syntax is that you have the event object, the target, right, and then the value, right, to accumulate those keystrokes, right, into some text state variable, correct? Right. So this must be what? This must be, this must be QWE. This must be the target, and this must be the value being accumulated in a string state variable, right? Using probably RTY to update the state variable. And then with its initial value of GFD. So this must be what? This must be the value initialized to YUI, right? Which shows the current value of the string state variable. And as I type, it changes over time. Correct? All right. So let's look at what the question says. It says fill in the blanks below, so that if you type SDF, right, in the input field, then H2 will render GFD SDF. Notice that GFD is the initial value that I'm passing here. See that? So if I type SDF, eventually this will become whatever its initial value was plus the 3 characters, correct? Right, so that that kind of a giveaway, right? That this is just plain old an input field, right? I'm just typing 3 letters, right? And it's just accumulating that, right? So that becomes obvious. All right, so if that's true, then let's see. 4 would be what? 4 would be the state variable, right? That I'm accumulating. So that's YUI. This is YUI. 5 would be the initial value or the current value. So that is rendered on the input field, also YUI. So this renders the current value, right? Which initially is GFD, right? And then after I type SDF, it becomes whatever the initial value was plus SDF. So it's the current value of the state variable. That makes sense? No? All right. I think somebody in the somebody might have answered quotes GFD SDF, and that's technically correct. Okay, that is technically correct, right? If you put a quotations and then the actual literally GFD SDF as number 4, right? I would probably have to give you the points, because that is that's technically correct, right? That regardless of what you're typing, right? After typing that value, it never changed. It was always the same, right? And that's the value. So I would have to word this a little bit, right? I would need to word it a little better, right? Making it clear, right, that the value is changing as you type, right? And the final result is that it would be GFD SDF, correct? So please try to understand this as what the intended question, right? That it's an input field, it's changing over time, right? And want to display the current value as you type. Okay. So all right. So 6 is the event object. So this must be QWE. 7 must be the we're calling the setter, right? The mutator. So this must be RTY. So this is the state variable. We're grabbing the target. So this must be target. And this must be the value. So this must be value. And once you have this, obviously you should be able to run this in your head, right? And see if indeed this actually works, right? Assuming that this is my answer, right? And I go and substitute all those values, would it do actually what it says it does, right? And indeed, looks like this indeed, right? Generates this output. Yes.
If you make H the head, you make the value out, and then you make the input value also, wouldn't that just like show it up?
Well, yeah, you would have a display in 2 places, right? As a header and in the input field.
Oh, that's
Yeah, it's the input field, right?
so that's what we want. So why we want to do that?
Yeah, I'm just saying that the header is going to display that value.
Oh, but I put the header that
Well, no, it says that the header has to display that.
the header displays it. And then for the input field,
Since it doesn't say type, it has to be an input. It must be a type text. It's the default. Text is the default.
when I say value, this not like what
It's almost like the default value. Same thing as the default value. Yeah, you could use the same state variable and display in multiple places, right? So wherever I would use QWE as a header, I could down below I can have another header, header 3 that also displays QWE. I could put it in a paragraph, and as it changes, right, it would update everywhere. Yes, initializes SDF, correct. Right, because I'm passing it here, right, the value, which is initially GFD. Yes, after you type, it says, fill in the blanks so that if you type SDF in the input field, H2 will render, GF something, SDF. So whatever its initial value was, plus these 3 characters, right? So, and here we are passing you the initial value, right, which is being used here to initialize the state variable. This starts at GFD, right, and then you type 3 more characters, all right? Okay. So let's take a look at question 6. Great questions, excellent. All right, so let's see. We have QWE, and so consider the following code snippets. Export, blah, blah, blah. Looks like there's some paths here, some IDs. right? It looks like we have some class names. Looks like we have some ternary expressions, right? Inside of some class, whether and the class name is either going to be that or not nothing, right? So if this is something or equal to whatever that is, then the class name will be SDF or nothing, and this one will also either be the class name will be either ASDA or nothing. Yes, right? And it looks like these are paths, so maybe perhaps these are links. I don't know. Looks like maybe these are clickable links. I don't know yet. Okay, it says if you click DSA, so if you click DSA, then element 123, that one, the other link, I guess, has the class ASD applied to it. Okay, so it looks like if I click this thing here, then this one gets the class ASD. And vice versa, if I click on FDS, then element 234 gets the class SDF. Right, so it looks like if I click one, it affects the other one, and if I click on the other one, it affects the one. Right, so it looks like they affect each other. Right. Okay, so let's see what else. Only use letters. Blah 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 blah. Okay. All right. So let's see. Okay. So it's so what? So if this, if so, let's make a couple hypotheses. Right. If this were a link, then this would be a path, correct? And if I click on DSA, what does that do? It updates the URL to have hash FDS ZXC. Everybody good? Is that true? Right? If this were a link and this were a path, if I click on DSA, right, what would happen? The URL, right, it would append hash FDS ZXC. Make sense? No, well, you would there would have to be some route. Correct. There would have to be some route. Yes, all this would have to be declared inside of a route, right? And all proper, but there is no routes here, so I'm assuming that has already been configured, right? I'm already inside of some route. There's a hash router and everything, but none of this happens here, so I'm assuming that this is already a route, right? And what does this do? So again, if this were a link with a path, then if I click on this one on FDS, it would cause the URL to be hash FDS CXZ. Does that everybody agree with that? Right. So it looks like the URLs would switch, right? If I click one or the other, and basically they would have the same base FDS. They both start with FDS, right? Only the last piece changes, right? One would be ZXC and the other one would be CXZ. Yes, that would be the difference, right? They would be switched. These values would be switched if I click one or the other. Everybody good? Okay. All right. So what we're saying here is that if I click on this one, it changes, right? It changes the URL, and this should cause ASD to be applied, right? Or yeah, ASD to be applied. If I click on this class should be applied to the other link. So how do we do that? Well, it says here that the only way for this to be applied is for this to be true, right? Now, if you look at that, that looks like a very simple, there's a similar pattern that we've been using, you know, when we were highlighting the hyperlinks, right? In the Canvas navigator, right? In in our table of contents, right? In the course navigator. That's a very similar, right, to a technique that we use quite a few times, right, to be able to highlight some certain things when some path, right, where was including some piece of text, right? So for instance, we used it in the account, right, checking to see if the path name included account, we would highlight the account link. Remember that, right? Or if it included a dashboard, we'd highlight the dashboard link. So this looks very, very similar to that strategy. Now for that to work, right? What do? We parse. We wanted to parse, right, the path name, right, from the location. Remember that, right? And to do that, we would grab use location, and we would extract the path name from the location. Remember that we used it in quite several places, right? Again, Campus Navigator, the Account Navigator, the Course Navigator, the Table of Contents. So we've been using this strategy for quite a while. Right? So you should be able to, you know, you know, you kind of identify these patterns, right? These techniques, and say, oh, I know what this is doing. Right? And so our technique was to check that path name to see if it included some particular text, and if that was true, right, then we would apply some class or nothing, right? What we did is apply either the active class, right, or some other class that would highlight into some white background, foreground color black or something like that, right? Okay, so yeah, so we have a strategy, right? So one would have to be path name, if that's the case, right? So this would be path name. Two would be use location. So use location. So if that's true, then these would be the links that I would be clicking. So 3 would be link. So 3 would be link. 4 would be path, right? So 4 would be path. Say again. 2. Oh, sorry, it's 2. You're correct. Very good. It is 2. Very good. And so, okay, so 4. And so this one, the strategy was that we would check to see if the path name included, right? Although so I saw some folks using other string functions, like like either contains or ends with or starts with, right? And so, or index of, okay, and all those would work, okay. The one we use in class, I believe it says includes, right? But if you use other functions that also work, right, that are string, searching for a substring, and if it works, I'll give you, probably the auto grader will fail, right, because it's looking for a specific function, right? But if you certainly choose an alternative function that also works, if you lose points, please call it out, right? Take a screenshot, say, hey, I missed points, I lost points for number 6, but it should just work just fine, okay? I just point it out, we'll go back and manually regrade it and give you the credit where it's due, okay? But, right, the intended easy solution would be to have, 5 would be the path name, 6 would be, includes or contains, 7, all right, so what would this be? Well, so notice that we want SDF to be applied, right? Notice that says that element 234. So this link should get the SDF, but only if the other one is clicked. See that? And vice versa. So meaning that it's this one, right, that causes this to take the SDF. When this is clicked, that means that it's when the URL contains ZXC that we are applying SDF to this first link. See that? Right? It's when we click on this one that we apply ZXC and in the URL, which causes the SDF to be applied. See that? So 7 must be ZXC. See that? So 7 is CXZ. Other answers might be, which would be totally fine, would be, I guess, anything that includes any of this. Right, this would also be a solution. That would work too. Etc. Let's continue. So 8 is also link. 9 is also 2. 10 is again path name. 11 is again includes or other equivalent substring functions. 12 would be ZXC. And 13 would be link again. And 14 is also link. Yes. Yep. Correct. Because when I click on this, then this appears in the URL. Right, so I'm checking to see if it includes ZXC, then I apply ASD. See that? If I click on this one, this is being added to the URL. So I'm looking for, I'm applying ASD when there's ZXC. See that? Right, so one affects the other, and the other affects the one. Right? Okay. 14, what is 14? Okay, link. All right, so let's take a look at question 7. Okay, question 7. All right, so consider here an array of strings, EWQ, that has 3 strings, and then we have some other variable, presumably some other constant that is equal to some array that has EWQ spread right in the middle. So it's adding 1, 2, 3 in front of it and 5, 6, 7 to the end. So in the end, right, this new constant includes numbers 1, 2, 3 all the way through 5, 6, 7. Yes, right, and those 3 numbers in between. And then it says, well, fill in the blanks so that RTY, so this RTY is equal to WER. So it looks like it's using, iterating over some array, maybe using a function. So notice that WER can only be number 1, right? 1 can only be WER. So let's do that. So WER. And in here, since it's an array, this must be an array function, whether it's map or index of or find index or what now, we don't know, right? But it's saying that RTY, the resulting value is just a single string. Okay, so this cannot be map, right? Because map would return a new array, right? That would be the same length as this one, right? So it cannot be map, it cannot be find, it cannot be anything that returns another array, right? It has to be something that returns a value, a single value, and it's returning a string. So it cannot be find index, right? It cannot be index of, right? Because all those return numbers, right? Return integers. So it returns a string. So it must be returning one of the values in the array, right? It's returning a value from the array, and notice that it's not a number, right? It's a string. So that means that this must be, I'm looking through the array, I'm looking for an item in the array, and I'm returning the value that meets the criteria. Yes. So this must be find, right? It cannot be anything else, right? So 2 must be find. So as I'm iterating over each item, so the ASD grabs the values of 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. So ASD, we see the value, right? It's each one of those values. So as you're going, also BNM is the integer, the index, right, of the current iteration. So BNM is 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth, right? Okay, so right, so for this, for RTY to return 4, 5, 6, we could do a couple of ways. We could say that, if you compare 3 is ASD, if it's equal to the string 4, 5, 6, then this whole thing would evaluate to 4, 5, 6, right? But also you could do it another way. You could say 3 could be BNM, and it's equal to, let's see, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So it would be BNM equal to 3. So there's two answers, right? Either this is ASD is equal to the string 456, and this would return 456, or if this is BNM, right, and it's equal to 3, right? Because we're iterating over WER, looking for the item in the index 0, 1, 2, 3, or the string that is equal to 456. Yes, right. Notice if these were different values, if I say ASD is equal to XYZ, then it would not work, right? It would not evaluate to 456, right? It would just return null, right? Because I didn't find any string that is equal to XYZ. Yes, right. So two answers. So it's either, so let's write this down. So 1 must be WER. So 1 must be WER. 2 is find. 3 is either ASD or BNM. And if that's the case, 4 must be either 456, or 3. Yes? Either one of those answers would be okay. Yes. Say again, if you what?
It iterates over each thing in there, right?
Yep, right.
How are we doing in index and in
So the syntax of this function when you're iterating, right? Usually we ignore the second argument, right? We don't use it, right? We only use the value, right? But it's still being passed to us, right? But we just have to, we have been ignoring it, right? So the question, I could have made this a little less ambiguous and not giving you BNM, so there would have been only one answer, right? That the ASD is equal to 456. So that would have been the only answer, right? But because I'm giving you two, I'm also giving you the index, which we usually ignore, right? Then a correct answer would be that also BNM is equal to 3. Yes? Okay. All right, go to question 8. Okay, so this might be a trick question, right? It's showing it's showing, looks like checkboxes, right? The image, I think, is undeniable a checkbox, right? 3 checkboxes with labels ABC, DEF, and GHI, right? And you'll notice that the labels are there they are. Okay? And it says that if the user clicks on the text, notice that it explicitly saying that you're not clicking on the checkboxes, right? You are clicking on the text, okay? Then the button on its left is selected. So if I click on ABC, then the checkbox is checked. Yes? If I click on GHI, then the checkbox. All right, so how do we do that? Well, let's see. There were 2 ways. Remember, there were 2 ways. One is either you declare a checkbox input field, right? And then you wrap it with a label, right? And then you put the label at the end. Or you can declare first the input field, and then you declare the label separately, right? But for that to work, you need to declare an ID, a unique identifier in the checkbox, and the label would have to use HTML4, right, to reference the checkbox. Remember that? So there were 2 ways. This one looks like it's using our first strategy, where there is no HTML4. Instead, we are wrapping the whole input checkbox with a label. So 2 would be label. Yes. 1 would be the type of the input field, which is the checkbox. So 1 would be checkbox. Notice that I gave it the same name, and this was a trick question. Right? I'm giving the name of radio, right? But the name doesn't really matter, right? Name just says that these 3 checkboxes are of the same group, and the name of the group is radio, right? But but obviously it's a checkbox, right? The text in the name doesn't cause this to render any different way, right? It only says that these are all grouped and they all belong to the same group, and the name is radio, right? So I saw some people fall for that, right? And so they put for one, they put radio, right? And no, the checkboxes, right? From the rendering, you can see that's it's a checkbox. Okay. All right. So one is checkbox. Two is label, and three must be input. Okay. Right. So another way of doing that is that you do not wrap it in a label. Instead, you put the label over here, right? Right. You only wrap the text with label, right? But then then to be able to, for the behavior that you click on the text, but the input field is the one who's checked, for that behavior to work, right? The label would have to use an HTML4 and refer to the ID, which we're not. Yeah, and maybe in this exam I'll use the other strategy instead of this one. Okay, if at all. So question 9. Okay, so let's see. It looks like this is another question that we are manipulating or calculating something from an array, right? But these are arrays of numbers, 42, 33, and 24. And then looks like we are using that to spread that over a new array, and creating a brand new array, assigning it to 1. And then looks like we are using that same array that we just created. So it must be called QWE, right? Otherwise, there's no other place where we can declare that. And then it says fill in the blanks so that WER over here is equal to 3. Okay. All right. Then again, this can, 2 must be one of those functions that iterate over the array, right? Map, reduce, sum, right? Find index, blah blah blah, right? And notice that the value must be a number, right? It must be a number. And notice that all these have numbers, but we know the numbers, right? We know exactly what the numbers are. This, QWE contains 51, 42, 33, 24, and then 15. Those are all the numbers in QWE. So none of them evaluate to 3. So this could not be find. It could not be find because find would return one of these values, correct? Return one of those values. And instead it's returning 3. Okay. So it must be maybe index of or find index or one of those, right? That returns some number, right? So as I'm iterating, each item, right, it's taking the values 51, 42, 33, so this value, so it must be ASD. So this must be ASD because I'm using it here, and I'm comparing it against something that when it's equal to that, this whole thing returns a 3. So the only way that could be is that I'm checking for 51, so that's index is 0. So this would if this were 51, then this will return 0, right? If it's 42, then this will return 1. If this were 33, it would return 2. And if this were 24, then it would return 3. Yes? So it must be that this QWE dot find index ASD 24. Right? It's the only way for this to evaluate to 3. Okay? So let's see. So question 9, 1 is QWE. Then 2 must be find index. 3 must be ASD. And 4, I believe, must be 24, right? Okay, let's go on. Next one, question 10. Okay, so question 10 is a question about, looks like it's input fields, right? I think this is one of the quizzes, I believe, right? It says, consider the following set of radio buttons. I'm telling you, these are radio buttons, right? So already 3 must be input and 2 must be radio, right? I just told you they are, right? Then here we have, looks like another attribute, and they're all the same. And then we have all these values, right? We don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And it says, okay, so one set of radio buttons is for choosing a single color, and the other set of radio buttons is for choosing the single movie genre. Okay, so it's telling us that there are 2 groups of radio buttons, right? And it looks like the comedy, horror, and drama are grouped together, whereas red, blue, and yellow are also grouped together. And presumably they are not mixed in with one another. They belong to distinct set of radio buttons. Make sense? Right? And this goes back to when we were looking at this and we were covering HTML, right? How do you make radio buttons to be mutually exclusive amongst each other, but not across groups? Yes? Like to make sure that one group did not affect, right, the other set of group of radio buttons. So it says, okay, so using color and genre, those 2 strings, fill in the blanks above to group the radio buttons into a color group and a genre group, so that you can select one and only one color and only one genre, but selecting a color does not affect selecting a genre, and selecting a genre does not affect selecting a color. It's clear, right? So the way we group things together is for an attributes using the name attributes, right? And if the name attributes have the same name, right, then they belong to the same group. Make sense? Right. So 1 would be name, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is either color or genre. Yes. So for the colors, 4, 5, 4, 6, and 8 would be genre, and 5, 7, and 9 would be color, right? And that would group them together and would make them mutually exclusive amongst each other, but not across groups. Make sense? Right. So let's say, so 1 must be name, 2 must be radio, 3 must be input, and 4 must be genre, color, and this repeated a couple of times. Like that. All right? Okay. Careful. I've seen folks make this mistake. They'll start filling out this value and they'll put it in number 1. Right? I've seen a lot of you to do that. Right? They're gonna answer this value and they'll put it in 1. Then this will be 2, and then this will be 3. Okay, careful, right? They're not always in the right order. Okay, and that's because the especially when I do these exams remotely, right? These exams are generated randomly, right? So these placeholders are random, so that the questions are in different orders. These are in different orders, right? So that discourages folks from collaborating, right? That what did you answer for number 2 or number 4, right? And your number 2 might be different from somebody else's number 3, right? So again, to discourage folks from collaborating and asking or working together, these are randomly generated. These numbers change, right? These values change. So somebody might get comedy, right, and color, and somebody might get albums and movie genres or whatever, right? So yeah, the same question, but different topics, different text, different whatnot. Yeah. Also, that's also why I often use these bogus names, right? It's hard to say, oh, is it QWE or EWQ? When you're collaborating, right? It's easy to misspell or, but if you concentrate just you working, then it should be okay. All right. But obviously, you're not going to be quit. You're not going to be dishonest, right? You're all going to work all on your own. All right. All right, so question 11. Okay, so looks like this is a question about spreaders and destructors, object spreaders and object destructors, right? Kind of like a mix of both. We have two objects, QWE and ZXC. The first one is declaring an object, and then that object is then being spread into another object. Right? So this one declares a first object, which is being spread into another object, right? And then that object, probably three, must be either one or the other. We're not quite sure. And then we are extracting, we are destructing, we're extracting each value, right, from the object on the right-hand side, and then displaying the values ASD and SDF. And we're telling you that when you display ASD, you get 4, 5, 6, and when you display SDF, you get 2, 3, 4. Yes? All right, so let's take a look at that. All right, so we're saying that, let's see, the first print is 4, 5, 6. So we're telling you that ASD must be 4, 5, 6. Yes? And that means that this ASD must be a 4, 5, 6. Okay, so how do we get that? Let's see. Okay, so there's a 4, 5, 6 there. Yes. Could it be anywhere else? Could we get that 4, 5, 6 any other way? No, right? There's no way, because this is just copying this object onto a new object. So there are no changes in the values, right? There could be overrides, maybe. There could be overrides. But this looks like it's being declared after the spreader. So it looks like this is not being overwritten, right? So this looks like it's the last value, right, for this property, 4, 5, 6. So to be able to extract the ASD to be equal to 4, 5, 6, then it must be that this is ASD, right? That's the only way, right? We're picking out 4, 5, 6 as ASD. So 1 must be ASD. Now, if that's true, though, then this must be ASD, right? So it looks like ASD at some point had the value 1, 2, 3. It was spread over ZXC, but then it was overwritten again. See that? Would that work? Right? Yes, right? It could be that ASD had initially the value 1, 2, 3. It was spread over, but then it was redeclared to override whatever value we had for ASD to set it again to 4, 5, 6. Make sense? So that works, right? So if I use one I use ASD for 1, this will work, right? So let's do that. So let's say 1 must be ASD. All right, so let's keep going. So let's see. So SDF says that it's 2, 3, 4. So ASDF is 2, 3, 4. We are destructing 3. 3 must be ZXC, must be, right? It can't be anything else. Let's see. So SDF. So SDF is from where? So 1 is already ASD, so I'm not touching that. So the only way that I would get SDF is where? Well, the only other placeholder is either 2. That's the only place that it could be, right? Anything, and there is a 2, 3, 4 there. So let's see if that works. If I put a 2, 3, 4 there, here it looks like also it's being declared. So this would be SDF 3, 4, 5, but that's okay because QWE is overriding my old SDF, right? It's becoming 2, 3, 4 because it's overriding a prior 3, 4, 5, right? So that would work, right? So this would end up just declaring SDF as 2, 3, 4. I would pick it out over here as 2, 3, 4. So that would work. Yes. Okay. So that does work. So let's see. So 2 would be SDF, and 3 would be ZXC. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at question 12. So consider the following HTML. So we have a header, and it says that it has an attribute equal to REW and another attribute equal to TRE. Yes? Right. And then it says, I'm white, I'm blue. Right. presumably it must be that the foreground color is white, right, and the background color is blue, right? That's what it presumably that's what it says. I see that it doesn't render on the printout, right? That's why the text tells you what it is, right? And then down below, notice that REW is being declared either as a, well, actually no, these are four CSS rules is declaring an ID REW that has a foreground color of green. And then it also declares a class REW that has a background color of green, but a foreground color of white. Okay. Then it's declaring an ID selector, right? That it's setting the background to be blue. But then also declares a class TRE that declares a background blue and a foreground color of white. Everybody good? Right. So basically it's asking, right, whether REW over here, the attribute should be ID and the other one class, right? Or class name, or whether this one should be class name and this should be ID, right? Notice that I can't use the same attribute twice. Right? I cannot say ID or class. It needs to be one either class and the other one ID, or the other one ID and the other one class. Yes? Right? All right, so let's try it out. I mean, we could just do trial and error, right? So let's try out if one is ID and two is class name. So if that's the case, then we would be using these two outer rules. Yes? Right, it would be that the background color would be green, right? And then whereas this one would say that the background color is blue and the foreground color is white. Yes? So the question is that, there is a collision of properties, right? One rule is saying that the background should be green, and the other one says that the background should be blue. Which one wins? We do get the color white that we want. We want the foreground color to be white, so that's okay. This class is good. I want that, but what would be the background color? Either blue or green. Well, we want it to be blue, but the ID takes precedence, right, over classes, right, because it's more unique. Make sense? So it has a higher priority. So that would not work, right? This would not work. It would cause the background to be green as opposed to be blue, right? But the foreground color would be white, right? So that doesn't work. So the only other option is to try the other way around, where one is class or class name and two is ID. If that's the case, then we're using the two inner rules here, right? Where we have, we have these two. Let's try that out, right? So if that's the case, we're doing what? The class here is setting the background color to be green and the foreground color to be white, but the ID TRE is saying that the background color should be blue, right? So again, we are getting the foreground color to be white, which we want, right? But there's a contention whether the background color is green or blue. But again, the ID is going to override, the class, right? It has higher priority because it's more unique. So it would end up with a background color blue and the foreground color white. So that's the option, right? That's the right answer, where the the REW is a class. Right? So one is class name or class, and two would be ID. Okay? All right. And I believe that you've seen that question in one of the quizzes. Okay, question 13. All right, consider the next code. Okay, another question where we are playing around with array spreaders and destructors. So we are declaring KWE to be some value. We don't know what that is. And then ASD is equal to 456. Then we are declaring a new constant that contains some values, and then intermix with the other two constants, QWE and ASD. And then we are extracting from ZXC. So 4 must be ZXC, okay? Because the other ones are not arrays, right? So the array destructor only works with an array. So it would not work with QWE or ASD. So it must be that 4 is ZXC. And so we are destructing the array that contains 321, QWE, 432, and so on and so forth, right? And notice that we are extracting the first two items And it says that the first two items, so 2 and 1, it says console log EWQ, console log EWQ in REW. It says fill in the blanks above so that the console prints 3, 2, 1, and then 4, 5, 6. All right, so EWQ, we know that it must be 3, 2, 1. Yes? So EWQ must be 3, 2, 1. So where's the 3, 2, 1 here? At the beginning of the array. Right? So 2 must be EWQ, right? Because by position, since it's the first item in the destructor, it would take the value of 3 to 1. Yes? So 2 can only be EWQ. And then it says that REW, well, this must be REW, it prints 4, 5, 6. So if this is REW, right, then it takes the second value in the array, which must be QWE. So QWE must have the value of 4, 5, 6. So 3 must be 4, 5, 6. See that? Right? Again, hopefully these don't have ambiguous responses. There's only one possible combination of values, right? But if you do find new ones, let me know, right? And I'll fix it. Yes. I'm sorry. Say again. Correct. Yes. When using object destructor, right? It's by the name of the property, so the order doesn't matter, right? Whereas in the array destructors is by position, right? So the first one gets the first item from the array, right? In the position that you declare them. Yep. Okay. So what do we say? 1, right, was REW. So 1 was REW. 2, right, was EWQ. Then 3 must be 4, 5, 6. Right? Okay. Go next. So question 4. Yes. I'm sorry? Oh. What was for? Oh, ZXC. Thank you. Oh. Yeah, I am recording, right? Okay, question 14. Let's see. Okay, so question 14. It says, consider the following code snippet, QWE, that has a function that I am going to export, right? So it's a function that takes in 2 parameters, and it returns a header that just multiplies the 2 parameters. One of the parameters is ZXC, so the other one, 3, must be ASD, can't be anything else. And so then I import the component, and I pass a couple of parameters. So notice that ASD, as I said, one of the parameters must be ASD. In fact, we are passing it over here. So 3 must. That's it. That's even a more better argument that 3 must be ASD, and 1 we know the other name of the argument. So this must be ZXC, right? Right. So 1 is ZXC. Let's put that in. 2, we don't know what that is. So it's the value of whatever that is, which is going to be multiplied. And it says, fill in the blanks above so that the browser renders 9. Okay. So one of the values is 9. So it must be 9 times what is equal to 9. So it must be 1, right? 9 times 1. So the value here must be 1. So 2 must be 1. And 3 must be ASD, right? So ASD. So that was easy. Okay, let's see. We have we're declaring an array that has values 2 and 3, which is being spread over another array, QWE, and then we're probably iterating over that array, QWE probably. So 1 is QWE, and that array, as we're iterating, let's see. It says that as each item is iterating, and we are presumably comparing each item, checking to see if it's greater than some value, right? It says that the resulting WER is equal to 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the input array becomes WER 3, 4, 5. Let's see, the input array is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, that's the input array. So so the numbers between 1 and 5, but the resulting array only includes 3, 4, 5. See that? So it must be that as I'm iterating here, I'm filtering out, right? I don't want the items. I only want the items if the items are greater than some value, right? So basically, if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I only have 3, 4, 5, then I only want the values that are greater than 2, I guess, right? Only the values. So this would be what? This QWE, I'm filtering as ASDs that are greater than 2. Make sense? Right, so again, so 1 is QWE, and I'm filtering, so filter. Notice that it can't be anything else. It cannot be map, right? It cannot be reduced. It can't be sum, right? Only filter returns a smaller array, right, with a subset of the original array. Yes? So that's filter. So 3 must be ASD, and 4 is 2, greater than 2. Right. All right, question 16. Question 16, let's see, we have a component, right, that, let's see, it's a double bracket in there, so it looks like a destructor is equal to some function that takes as argument some array, right? So that right away, it looks like maybe I'm going to assume this might be like a use state kind of question, right? That I'm initializing a state variable to some array, and 1 and 2 are the state variable and the mutator. Maybe, I don't know, right? But it's a pattern that I see. And then we have 2 functions, QWE and WER. And then below, we have 2 buttons that call these 2 functions, QWE and WER, and with some arguments. We don't know what the arguments is just yet. And it says, fill in the blanks below so that if you click the button EWQ first and then REW second, so in that order, so you first EWQ and then REW, then H2, the header, right, displays the following array, right? 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, and 4, 5, 6. Okay, right? All right, let's take a look at it. All right, so notice that, yeah, so it looks like we are somehow manipulating some array, right, using some state variable. Okay, and it says, so the state variables, we don't know what the names are, right? We don't know quite yet, but let's see if we can figure out what they are. Let's see. So what is QWE doing? Let's see. What is it doing? So it looks like it's calling a function with an array. Where have we seen that? We've seen that quite a bit when we are manipulating an array, right? And we want to either, either remove something from the array or add something from the array or change an item in the array, and we call a mutator with a new version of the array, right? We've done it with courses, right? When we're adding a course, removing a course, updating a course. We've done it with modules. We've done it with to-dos, right? We've seen that a lot, right? Where we have some mutator, and the mutator takes as argument some new array, which is updating that array, okay? Okay, so I'm going to go with that, but not quite sure. What's the second one doing? It's also doing something similar. It's calling some function that is grabbing some item. It's calling a function on it, and so this looks like it's a array manipulation that is iterating over some arrays, right? And maybe it looks like it's filtering something. Notice that it has the not in there, right? We've done that. In for instance, when we are removing things from an array, right? That we're filtering out a particular item, right? and we're calculating a new array that doesn't have that particular item. Remember that? We've done that quite a bit. So let's go with that. Let's assume that that's the case. So here we're giving a hint that this might be the mutator function, right? That it's saying, oh, well, this is the one that calculates the new array, right? So 2 probably is ZXC. So let's go with that for now. I don't know what this is. So 2 might be ZXC, is a mutator function. So probably 4 is also the mutator function as well, right? So that one I know, but this must be ZXC. All right, so 3 is probably the U state. So let's go with that. So 3 is the U state. Okay, so 1 and 2. So 2 is the right the mutator. 1, we don't know the name of the state variable. We don't know that yet. 3 is U state. Okay, so what are we doing here? Let's see. It looks like it wants us to notice the array, right? The output array is 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, and 4, 5, 6. So to accomplish that, if we start off with the original array, right? How would we do that? Well, it would mean that we don't want the number 2, 3, 4 anymore, and we are having a brand new value 5, 5, 6, 7. So somehow I need to remove the 2, 3, 4, and I need to append somehow 5, 6, 7. Yes, right. That looks like what transformation is happening here, right? Let's see. And how do we do that? Let's see. So this one is doing what? This one is appending a new item. See that? In front of the array. Right? It looks like that's what it's doing, right? It's adding a new item, and then it's copying, right, the remaining items in the array. That's what it seems that it's doing. It's putting in front some value. That would give us the 5, 6, 7 somehow, right? At the beginning of the array. See that? Right? But before we do that, we need to be able to remove 2, 3, 4. Right? We need to remove 2, 3, 4. So we do have a function that looks like it's removing something here, right? That it's calculating some new array, probably a filter, right? And as it's iterating over the items, we want to skip over some value. So that's what it's looking like that. Okay, so let's see if we can make some headway here. So we yes. Ooh, like for instance 2, 3, 4, because it adds up to 9. Yeah, I didn't see that pattern, but that could be it. That might be a little bit too far-fetched on overthinking it a little bit maybe. But yeah, it could be that I only use the value 2, 3, 4. Look for the item 2, 3, 4. I don't want it anymore, right? So for instance, if I click on EWQ, QWE looks like it's adding a value. So probably, I'm passing some value that is being appended. So probably is calling the mutator for the mutator where it's grabbing the new value. Probably I'm passing it here, and I want to append 5, 6, 7. So probably 10 is 5, 6, 7, and this is EWERT. So this is a 5, 6, 7 that I'm passing as an argument. So 5 would be ERT, probably ERT. And I'm iterating over this, and I'm copying the remaining of the array, which I still don't know the name. I still don't know the name. Do I? How would I know the name of the array? What is it? Thank you. Yes, so that is the name of the variable. Right, because it's displaying the array, right? It's DSA. Perfect, thank you. And so that would mean that 6 would also be DSA, right? And 7, iterating over DSA. And I am going to filter, right? I'm going to filter out. As I'm iterating, I don't want the item that I'm passing you, maybe RTY. If I pass you the value 11, probably I want to remove the value of 2, 3, 4. So 10 here is the value 567. And I want to remove the value of 234. Now, to get the addition of 9, how would you then do that? Or you would have to compute the iterate each item and add them up to be 9 and something like that. So that would be quite challenging. I would not give you something like that as complicated as that. But you're making me think. I don't know about something as interesting as that. Maybe we could do something like palindromes or something. Okay, so let's do a couple more. So question 17. So question 17, we have two components. We have the root component app, right? That is importing the ASD over here. That has an argument parameter here that looks like it's only renders. Notice that it renders as a route. See that? So it only renders if the path. So 6 must be path, right? Must be path. So the path looks like this. It starts with a HGF, followed by a parameter, followed by 2 parameters, right? 2 parameters. So it must be that this link causes the URL to change, and it presumably it causes the route to trigger and display ASD. And ASD presumably is going to parse using use params, probably, right? It's going to extract BNM and extract a second parameter, right? Notice that it says the parameter is BNM and the other one I don't know. But over here, I gave them names already, right? So it must be that one of the parameters called ASD and the other one I don't know. Actually, I do because it says that BNM. So the 2 parameters must be that it's ASD and BNM, right? And what else? And I'm going to pass a parameter that I don't know the name, and I'm passing some values to it. Let's see. So this one is parsing ASD. So let's see. So these must be values that I'm parsing from use params. So this number 3 must be use params, and this must be ASD. This must be. Oh wait, there's a couple more here. Okay, these are grabbed from the use params, and the other one must be a parameter that I'm passing along. No. Okay, so ASD is one of them. BNM is the second one. And then okay, this must be the attribute that I'm passing, CVB. So 1 must be CVB. All right, it says that fill in the blanks below so that the header displays 3. So this must be, okay, so this header here must be 3. So the values of ASD plus that minus that must be 3. Must be 3. So notice that we're passing 3 and 4. So I know that ASD must be 3 because it's in the order here, right? So this must be 3 over here. So ASD is 3. So 2 must be ASD. So this must be CVB. So 1 must be CVB. 1 must be CVB. 2 must be ASD. 3 must be use params. So use param. 4 must be BNM. And 5 must be HDF. 6 must be path, right? Path. 7 must be BNM. 8 must be element. 9 must be CVB. What else? Is there 10? No, there's no 10. What does DOM stand for? Right, so question 9. Question 18. So that's document. So 1 is document object model. And so that, oh wait, no, that's 19. Huh? Did I count wrong? Oh, 18 is URL, sorry. So question 18 is URL. So uniform resource locator, and question 19 is document object model, and 20 is, let's see, so one must be probably label, right? Label. Two must be HTML4. Three must be value, initial value. So this is value. So value or default value. Four must be just grade error. So this parameter. What is it? Placeholder. Five must be type, and six must be a tooltip. So it's a title. Okay. All right. I'll share this with I'll put it on Piazza so you can follow along and try it yourself. All right. All right. Excellent. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.